All right, so today we're going deep on Superman. The movie...
The one from 78.
Yeah. The one that really kicked off the whole superhero movie craze.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That one's a classic.
Totally. I mean, it wasn't just a good movie. It, set the standard for the whole genre.
I'm with you there.
So to get into all the behind-the-scenes stuff, we've got some great material. First up, excerpts from Larry Tye's book, Superman. It goes deep into the making of the film.
Sounds juicy.
Oh, it is. And we've also got some really cool analysis from the Stanford University Open Virtual Assistant Lab. They've got some interesting insights into the cultural impact of the film.
Wow. Okay. I'm ready to dive in.
Me too. This was a wild ride. So to set the stage, we're talking late 70s America, Vietnam, Watergate. The economy was a mess.
Yeah, not exactly a feel-good era.
Right. And then boom, Superman bursts onto the scene, the symbol of hope and justice.
Like the world was craving a Superman right at that moment.
Exactly. And that's what I love about Tye's book. He really captures that feeling. But the thing that really blew me away was how this movie almost didn't get made.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It was a total miracle. It even got off the ground. And it all starts with the producers, Alexander and Ilya Salkind, this father-son duo. They were something else.
Oh, I've heard stories about him.
Right. Tye describes Alexander the dad as more of a mole man than a Superman guy.
Meaning?
More comfortable sipping espresso in Paris than, geeking out over comic books.
Okay, so not exactly your typical comic book fanatics.
Not even close. I mean, Ilya actually had to explain to his own father who Superman was.
Oh, way.
Seriously. But somehow they saw the potential for this global phenomenon.
Even without being diehard fans themselves.
It's wild, right? And their approach to financing the movie was even wilder.
How so?
Get this. They sold off more than 100% of the production to secure funding.
Wait, how is that even possible? You can't sell more than you have.
It's mind-boggling. I know. Basically, they overpromised shares of the profits to different investors.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It totally was. They were scrambling to pay everyone off right up until the release.
Wow, that must have created some serious tension on set.
Oh, you better believe it.
Yeah.
And then you throw in Warner Bros., who owned the rights to Superman.
They were on board, right?
Not so much. At first, they were really hesitant about a Superman movie.
Really? Why?
They just didn't see the potential. Back then, comic book adaptations were seen as B-movie material.
Ah, so it was Superman. The movie that really changed all that.
It totally did. It took the Salkinds' crazy vision to make it happen.
Okay, so we've got these unconventional producers, a hesitant studio. But what about the actual movie itself? How do you even begin to write a script for Superman?
That's where things get even crazier. The script went through a ton of revisions, like a revolving door of writers.
Any big names?
Oh, yeah. You ready for this? Mario Puzo.
The Godfather guy.
The one and only.
Wow, what was his take on Superman?
Let's just say it was pretty out there. Picture Superman as a TV anchorman. Lois Lane as the weather girl.
Really, that's a far cry from the comics.
Oh, yeah. It was super campy. Apparently, DC Comics was horrified. They had these strict rules about how Superman could be portrayed.
They wanted to make sure he was taken seriously.
Absolutely. So they brought in Robert Benton and David and Leslie Newman to kind of rescue the script.
So they had to balance pleasing the Salkinds with staying true to DC Comics' vision.
Exactly. It was a tightrope walk, for sure. And to make things even more interesting, the Salkinds were known for falling asleep in meetings.
Oh, man. Talk about adding to the pressure.
Right. But luckily, they had the secret weapon, E. Nelson Bridwell.
Who's that?
He was DC Comics' Superman expert, like a walking encyclopedia of everything Superman.
So he made sure they didn't mess up the canon.
Exactly. Having him there was crucial. Okay, so you've got the script sort of figured out. Now you need a director.
Someone who can actually bring it all to life.
And this is where the casting gets really wild. The list of directors they considered, it's insane.
Like who?
Okay, are you ready? Roman Polanski, Steven Spielberg, even Sam Peckinpah.
Peckinpah, the Western guy.
Yep.
Can you imagine Superman in a gritty Peckinpah world?
That's a very different vibe.
It would have been wild. But in the end, they went with Richard Donner.
Good choice.
Oh, yeah. He was a huge comic book fan and a total Lois Lane admirer.
So he understood the source material.
Inside and out. And he was dedicated to getting it right. He insisted on what he called verisimilitude.
Verisimilitude.
Basically a sense of realism, even in a fantastical world.
Yeah.
He even had a banner with that word on set.
Wow, that's dedication.
He understood that to make Superman's powers believable, the world around him had to feel real.
Okay, so great director, solid script. Now you need the man himself, Superman.
And the casting for that role was just as wild as the director search.
I bet they saw a ton of actors.
Oh, yeah. The list is mind-blowing. Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, even Muhammad Ali was considered.
I'll let on Ali as Superman.
Seriously, I can't even picture it. But in the end, they went with a relative unknown, Christopher Reeve.
Interesting choice. What made them go with him? Well, he had this classic all-American look, and he really understood the duality of the character.
The strength of Superman, but also the vulnerability of Clark Kent.
Exactly. And Reeve was totally dedicated to the role. He bulked up, studied previous Superman portrayals.
But wanted to do it justice.
Absolutely. And he even developed different ways of moving and speaking for Clark and Superman.
Wow, so it wasn't just a change of costume.
Not at all. He really embodied those two sides of the same coin.
That's impressive. And what about Lois Lane?
Margot Kidder.
Yeah.
She was perfect. She brought this wit and independence to the role.
She wasn't just a damsel in distress?
Not even close. Her audition was actually a total accident.
What do you mean?
She just happened to bump into the producers, and her energy just blew them away.
You can't fake that kind of charisma.
And their chemistry in that iconic balcony scene where Superman takes Lois flying.
Pure movie magic.
It's one of the most memorable scenes in the whole movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of memorable, we can't forget the special effects.
Right. Pulling off Superman's flight in the pre-CGI era.
That must have been a challenge.
Oh, yeah. But they had this secret weapon, Zoran Perisic and his Zoptic technique.
What was that?
It was this groundbreaking combination of wires, miniatures, and clever camera work.
Because that's how they made him look like he was really flying.
Exactly. It was revolutionary. And it won an Oscar for special effects.
Wow. Well deserved. And then you add John Williams' iconic score.
Chills. The Superman March is like the anthem of heroism.
Williams really understood how to use music to elevate the emotion of the film.
He created these distinct themes for each character and location. Like you can hear the Krypton crystal motif and instantly feel the sense of sadness.
It's brilliant. It all adds to the depth of the film.
It totally does.
Yeah.
But okay, so we've got these amazing visuals, this epic score, but let's not forget about those Salkinds and their chaotic finances.
Right. I bet that caused some issues during production.
Oh, you have no idea. Ty goes into all the behind-the-scenes drama, lawsuits, budget overruns. There was even a steak knife attack.
With a steak knife attack? Who was involved?
Apparently, it was Marlon Brando's personal assistant, and a producer got into it over some script rewrites.
Wow, sounds intense.
It was. It just goes to show you how much pressure everyone was under.
It's amazing they even finished the movie with all that going on.
Right. But they did. And despite all the chaos, Superman, the movie became a massive hit.
I bet audiences loved it.
They did. It was a huge box office success. Critics were a bit mixed. Some loved the charm and humor. Others thought it was a bit simple. But overall, it was a triumph.
It revitalized Superman for a whole new generation.
And it paved the way for all the superhero movies we see today.
That's quite a legacy.
It really is. And there's this heartwarming story about Jerry Siegel's Superman's co-creator.
What about him?
He had a complicated relationship with the character, but after seeing the movie, he reportedly said, "This is exactly how I imagined it."
Wow, that must have been incredible for him to see his vision come to life like that.
Absolutely. So we've got this groundbreaking movie, but at the same time, something else was happening in the world of Superman comics.
What do you mean?
The comics were going through their own evolution during the 1970s.
Oh, interesting. So while the movie was introducing Superman to a new audience, the comics were redefining him.
Exactly. It's like these two parallel paths, both reflecting the changes happening in the world around them.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more. So what was happening in the comics? What kind of evolution?
Well, it all started with a new editor, Julie Schwartz. He came in with this idea to kind of declutter Superman's mythos.
Declutter.
Yeah, basically strip away some of the stuff that had built up over the years, make him a bit more grounded.
Interesting, like what kind of stuff?
One of the first things to go was kryptonite.
Really? Kryptonite? That seems pretty central to Superman.
I know, right? But Schwartz felt it had become a bit of a crutch for writers.
So he wanted to make Superman less vulnerable.
Yeah, in a way, they also dialed back his powers a little bit, made him less godlike, more relatable.
Huh. So a more human Superman, even though he's an alien.
Exactly. They wanted readers to connect with him on a human level, see him struggle a bit.
Makes sense. But wouldn't that make him less exciting?
Not necessarily. It's about finding that balance. They didn't want him to just effortlessly solve everything.
Right. They wanted him to be challenged.
And they wanted to modernize Clark Kent, too.
How so?
Well, they changed his job from newspaper reporter to television journalist.
To reflect the changing times.
Exactly. It was like they were saying Superman's got to keep up with the world, even in his alter ego.
That's clever. And wasn't it around this time that they started tackling some real-world issues in the comics?
You're totally right. They started to have Superman engage with things like racial injustice, environmental pollution.
Wow. So he wasn't just fighting Lex Luthor anymore.
Not at all. He was using his platform to speak out against societal problems.
That's a pretty big shift for the character.
It was. It's like he became more of a symbol of social progress.
Right. They wanted him to stand for something more than just being a strong guy.
They wanted him to represent truth, justice, equality, all that stuff.
So it's like, while the movie was making Superman a global icon, the comics were deepening his character.
Exactly. It's this amazing parallel evolution. And then you add Jeanette Kahn to the mix.
She was the new publisher at DC Comics, right?
Yep. And she was a total visionary. She saw the potential for Superman beyond just the comics.
Like merchandise and stuff.
Oh, yeah. She wanted to expand him into cartoons, novels, all sorts of things.
It's like she laid the groundwork for the whole superhero media empire we have today.
Exactly. Think about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all these interconnected movies and shows. It all goes back to that idea of a character existing across multiple platforms.
Wow, that's pretty ahead of her time.
She was brilliant, and she was also a champion for creators' rights.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that. She fought to give creators royalties and benefits.
Which was pretty unheard of back then. She really pushed to make the industry fairer for the people who actually created these characters.
That's awesome. But speaking of creators, we can't forget about Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster.
Superman's original creators.
Right? Their story's kind of tragic. They created this iconic character, but struggled financially for years.
It's a classic tale of the artist being exploited by the system.
They poured their hearts into Superman, but didn't own the rights.
It's heartbreaking. And Siegel even publicly spoke out about it. He put a curse on the Superman movie.
Really?
A curse.
Yeah, it was his desperate act born out of frustration. He felt ignored and undervalued.
He just wanted recognition for himself and Shuster.
And some compensation for their creation.
So what happened? Did the curse work?
Well, it eventually led to a settlement with Warner Communications.
So that they got some justice in the end?
They did. They got annual payments, medical coverage, and their credit restored on Superman works.
That's good. At least they got some recognition.
It's bittersweet, though. It came after years of struggle and hardship.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even when things seem hopeless, it's important to fight for what's right.
To stand up for yourself and your work. Okay, so we've talked about the movie, the comics, the creators. But let's zoom out for a second. What is it about Superman that's so enduring? Why do we keep coming back to this character after all these years?
It's a good question. What do you think?
I think it's because he represents something fundamental about being human.
Like what?
Hope, aspiration, the desire for a better world, the belief that we can make a difference.
He's like this ideal that we strive for, even though we know we can never fully reach it.
Exactly. And even though he's an alien, his story is ultimately a human one.
It's about finding your place in the world, using your abilities to help others.
And standing up for what you believe in, even when it's tough.
And that message of hope and resilience is universal. It speaks to people all over the world.
He reminds us that even when things are dark, there's always a reason to keep fighting.
And that even small acts of kindness and courage can have a big impact.
Exactly. Superman shows us that we all have the potential to be heroes in our own way.
That's a powerful message, and one that's especially relevant in today's world.
Absolutely. We need Superman now more than ever.
So we've talked a lot about the stories, but what about the visuals? I mean, Superman's costume, that iconic S shield, it's recognizable all over the world.
It's true. His visual design is just as powerful as his story.
Those bold colors, the flowing cape, that S shield, it all creates this image that's both instantly recognizable and deeply symbolic.
You see that red cape and you know exactly who it is and what he stands for.
Exactly. And the S shield itself has become this symbol of hope, justice, the triumph of good over evil.
It's amazing how a simple graphic design can carry so much weight.
It really is. It speaks to the power of symbols and how they can tap into our collective unconscious.
Superman's symbol, more than any other, represents the best of humanity.
Our potential for greatness, our capacity for compassion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've delved into the making of the movie, the evolution of the comics, the visual language of the character. But how did Superman, the movie itself, shape the superhero genre? I mean, it came out in '78, and now superhero movies are everywhere.
It's a good question. I think Superman, the movie was a real game changer. It proved that superhero films could be commercially successful and critically acclaimed.
Right before Superman comic book adaptations were often seen as kind of cheesy.
But Donner's film brought a sense of grandeur to the genre.
It was epic.
It felt like a real event. The
Bet.
special effects, the score, the cast, it all elevated superhero storytelling.
And Christopher Reeve's performance was groundbreaking. He brought such depth to the role.
He really captured the duality of Superman, the struggle between his powers and his human identity.
And Superman, the movie, established that classic superhero origin story.
The destruction of Krypton Kal-El's arrival on Earth, his upbringing by the Kents.
It's a formula that's been used countless times since.
It's hard to imagine the superhero genre as we know it without Superman. The movie.
It paved the way for everything that came after.
Wow, so we've really gone deep on Superman, haven't we?
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
From the crazy behind-the-scenes stories of the movie to the evolution of the character in the comics.
And those special effects in the movie.
Oh, yeah, groundbreaking.
I mean, they really brought Superman to life on screen.
And Christopher Reeve's performance?
Yeah.
Can't forget that.
He was the perfect Superman.
Absolute.
So much heart and strength.
He really set the bar.
He did. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I kind of want to zoom out a bit. Look at the bigger picture.
Sounds good.
What is it about Superman that still resonates with us after all these years?
That's a big question.
It is. Why do we still care about this guy? This alien who can fly and shoot lasers from his eyes?
I think it's because on some level we all long to be like him.
To have that kind of power.
Not just power, strength, kindness, compassion, the desire to make the world a better place.
He represents the best of humanity.
Exactly. Even though he's an alien, his story is ultimately about what it means to be human.
To find your purpose, to use your gifts to help others.
To fight for what's right, even when it's hard.
And that message of hope that's so important, especially in today's world.
We need hope now more than ever.
We do, and Superman gives us that. He reminds us that even in the darkest of times, good can triumph.
That even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
And that we all have the potential to be heroes.
In our own way. Every day.
Exactly. So as we say goodbye to this deep dive into the world of Superman, I hope you've come away with a renewed appreciation for this amazing character.
He's more than just a superhero.
He's a symbol of hope, a reminder of our potential for greatness.
And an inspiration to make the world a better place.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to all the sources we mentioned.
And until next time, keep exploring.